Maybe someday we will have a robot president. You know, couldn't be worse than what we have right now, shortly after his wife gives birth. And he keeps saying, it was brought to his attention today that we're the only country that does mail-in voting. When is somebody going to step in and tell him that is not true? 34 countries have mail-in voting. All the countries that have mail-in voting. So here's where the real magic comes in. That was yesterday. Guess what he did today? That's right, he voted by mail today for the special election in Florida. He's unbelievable.
Someone pointed out Trump's double standards, showing a pattern of dishonesty, so deep he often contradicts himself from one day to the next. The segment also highlighted claims about an Iran conflict, suggesting misinformation, diversion from the Epstein story, and harm to the economy. It argued this went beyond inconsistency and looked like serious irresponsibility disguised as patriotism. Jimmy Kimmel began with a straightforward remark that seemed to grow more accurate as events unfolded gradually.
Maybe someday we will have a robot president. You know, couldn't be worse than what we have right now.
A robot would at least stick to its own rules and remember what it said before. It wouldn't start conflicts just to shift attention away from serious scandals. But the country isn't run by a machine, it's run by Trump, and Kimmel was getting ready to show how flawed that can be. The first hint of trouble appeared close to home in Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago is located. This is an area Trump easily won not long ago, yet voters there turned down his chosen candidate. It offered an early glimpse of what could happen in the upcoming election. As mentioned before, the same person who criticized mail-in voting now seems to benefit from it, adding to the growing list of contradictions.
We got a sneak peek at what might be in store for Team Trump come November at the elections. I mentioned last night, Mr. Ban Mail-in Voting voted by mail in a special election in Palm Beach. This is a district Trump won by double digits 2 years ago, and the district he lives in. But seems like maybe the magic is wearing off because last night, a Democrat, Emily Gregory, scored a major upset over a Republican that Trump endorsed. She won one solidly red seat in the state legislature, which is a real kick in the golf balls for Mar-a-Lago.
Trump backed a candidate in his own area and strongly supported him, but he still lost to a Democrat in Florida. It happened shortly after the endorsement, surprising many people.
2 days ago, Trump said the Republican candidate, John Maples, had his complete and total endorsement and that John will never let you down. And he's right, he won't, because he's back to work as a financial planner. He lost the race. The idea that Trump voted by mail at the same time he's trying to ram this Save My Fat Orange Ass Act through Congress right now, which is a bill that would do away with mail-in ballots, has put leaders in the GOP in a bit of a pickle.
It wasn't really about fair elections, but more about protecting Trump. He even used mail-in voting himself, the same method he criticizes. It feels like one set of rules for him and another for everyone else. When House Speaker Mike Johnson was questioned about this, he avoided giving a clear answer.
The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was asked about this latest act of brazen hypocrisy and did a little tap dance around it.
President Trump has railed against mail-in voting as rigged. He said it's a form of cheating as recently as Monday. But in yesterday's special election in Florida, he voted by mail. How do you square those two statements?
Look, I think some states have handled mail-in balloting well. I think Florida is a good example of that. They don't allow fraud, and they have great systems. That is not true in other parts of the country, and that is the concern, especially in a state like California.
Right. You know, Florida, as we all know, is very buttoned down, very normal, whereas California, it's a madhouse. Listen, I've lived in both states. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in California. The only thing Florida does better is get manatees addicted to meth, all right? If you're looking to buy a hot dog from a woman in a G-string, Florida is the place you want to be. Otherwise, you're better off here.
That's not an exaggeration. Reports claim pollution has affected Florida's manatee population, yet Mike Johnson insists the state is doing well while calling California a disaster. It sounds backwards. One place facing serious environmental issues is praised, while another with a huge economy is criticized. That doesn't feel like a fair comparison. Then Kimmel pointed out something more troubling, suggesting Trump may not fully understand what's going on in a conflict linked to him, raising serious concerns about awareness and leadership.
largely because, according to NBC News, Trump gets a sizzle reel every day that only shows us attacking them. NBC said there's a daily montage. It typically runs for about 2 minutes, sometimes longer. He sees it every day. One official described the videos as a series of clips of stuff blowing up. And these video briefings are said to be fueling concerns among some of Trump's allies that he might not be receiving or absorbing the complete picture of the war. He's only seeing the positive stuff, which helps to explain why he keeps saying we already won the war that is still going on.
It looked more like a flashy highlight reel than a serious briefing, quick clips of blasts and destruction, but no real explanation, planning, or discussion of outcomes. It felt designed to impress rather than inform. That's not what you expect from a leader. Critics say it gives the impression of someone being entertained instead of properly briefed. In response, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt rejected the claims, saying people who have been in those discussions know the situation is being presented more seriously than described.
White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt released a statement pushing back on the story. She said anyone who has been present for conversations with President Trump knows he actively seeks and solicits the opinions of everyone in the room and expects full-throated honesty from all his top advisors. That sounds like him, right? I mean, this is the guy who said, I know more about ISIS than all the generals. That's very collaborative Donald Trump.
So when his spokesperson says Trump listens to different views, it often seems like he expects people to agree with him. If they don't, they risk losing their job. Reports suggest he has shown dramatic clips of military actions regularly.
Every day, they're bringing him these fun little action movies of us blowing stuff up. Everyone's telling him how great he's doing. He's got 4 whole cable networks dedicated to kissing his ass 24/7. His staff is terrified to ever bring him any bad news, and he has the memory of a worm at the bottom of a bottle of mezcal. And this is the man in charge of sending our children to war, at least the ones whose dads don't have a good podiatrist to get them out of it. It's really something.
He talks as if a conflict is already won, yet real people are still being sent into danger. Critics say it highlights unfairness, where some families avoid the risks while others carry the burden. His past, including avoiding military service, is often brought up in this context. Beyond the human cost, the situation has also strained relationships with allies. There are concerns that actions like these weaken trust between countries. Even leaders such as Kim Jong-un have suggested that the lesson is not to rely on friendly promises from the United States, pointing to a growing sense of doubt and uncertainty on the global stage.
By the way, that is another consequence of this war in Iran. The president's former pen pal, Kim Jong-un, says the lesson that he's learned is that you can't trust the sweet talk from the U.S. And as a result, he says he's going to make sure North Korea's nuclear status is irreversible. So I guess Trump wrote all those love letters for no reason at all. And to really rub it into his pumpkin face, Kim Jong-un was just reelected to a third term with 99.93% of the vote. The other 0.07% are dead. They're deceased now.
He once called Kim Jong-un a friend and spoke proudly about their connection, but now that trust seems broken. As a result, North Korea's nuclear program appears harder to stop. Critics say this reflects his legacy, not peace. Meanwhile, the defense secretary seems increasingly agitated, adding to concerns.
And you can see Pete is fired up.
The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved.
That's the moment the Cialis kicked in.
Watch his eyes and how his speech becomes slower, as if he is struggling to stay focused during the moment. At a press briefing about nuclear issues, the defense secretary appears heavily medicated, raising concerns about clarity and judgment. Critics say this is not real leadership, but a chaotic scene. Meanwhile, the negotiation team sent to handle the conflict faces resistance, with Iran reportedly refusing certain proposals linked to Jared Kushner.
Iranians have said they will not accept Jared Kushner or Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, as negotiators. The Iranians have a nickname for Jared. They call him the sorrowful broomstick, which sounds better in Farsi, and it's weird that the Iranians don't want to negotiate with Trump's son-in-law, whose primary job experience before this was holding Ivanka's purse. It seems very unfriendly. They want J.D. Vance to be the point person on talks.
Jared Kushner's role in Middle East talks is often criticized, with many saying his only real connections are being Trump's son-in-law and having close family ties. Critics mock his experience as limited. Iran reportedly rejected involvement, preferring more serious negotiators over someone they see as unqualified and inexperienced.
Anyway, the lives of millions of people are now in the hands of a man who struggled to order a donut. And whatever the outcome, the president has been very successful, you have to admit, in changing the narrative from the Trump-Epstein files to the war. There's been very little in the way of repercussions, in this country at least, for the many men who socialized with Epstein and did business with him, including one of his former lawyers, Epstein pal and Trump sycophant Alan Dershowitz.
J.D. Vance, the vice president, has been involved in discussions about peace efforts. However, Kimmel made a more serious point, suggesting the conflict may be used to shift attention away from other controversies, including Epstein-related allegations. Critics argue the focus on war helped divert public discussion. At the same time, economic damage continued to affect ordinary people's lives. While attention was elsewhere, the impact on families grew worse, raising concerns about priorities and accountability.
You have to give them points for imagination. You know, according to the New York Times, in some states, gas prices have now jumped more than 30% over the last 2 weeks. And according to the White House, no, they haven't. But what happened to all that oil we got from Venezuela? I thought we were going to be swimming in it. And on top of that, the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz is preventing imports of nitrogen, which is a key ingredient in the fertilizer American farmers need to grow crops, to grow our food. The price of fertilizer has skyrocketed since the war started.
Recent reports suggest officials rejected claims that U.S. oil shortages were real or caused by Venezuela. They argue there is no evidence that promised Venezuelan oil would suddenly fix energy prices, and past statements about overflowing supplies have not matched reality. Critics say these promises were used to support aggressive political messaging rather than deliver results. At the same time, public debate continues over whether oil-related claims are accurate or exaggerated, with many experts pointing out that energy markets are far more complex than political speeches suggest.
Trump administration is shelling out $1 billion of our money to a French energy company to cancel construction of wind turbines in North Carolina and New York. He's paying this company to not build these renewable energy farms because he has this weird hatred of what he calls windmills. He says they're unsightly, they're ugly monsters, they're losers, a con job, they're bad for the environment, and they make a lot of noise, which is exactly how most of us feel about him.
The policy wasn't about improving infrastructure or helping people. Critics say it was aimed at stopping wind turbines, based on Trump's personal dislike of their appearance. He has called them ugly and a scam. Kimmel suggested this reaction says more about Trump himself, calling it less comedy and more self-reflection.
According to the president, there was some major progress yesterday thanks to a mysterious gift.
You think I trust them? I don't trust them.
Why bother talking to them?
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it is a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant one thing to me: would deal with the right people.
Trump embarrassed himself, and Kimmel simply pointed it out. Night after night, the contradictions and mistakes kept piling up. Trump once joked about a future robot president, but Kimmel responded that even that might not be worse than the current situation. Since then, events have only reinforced that view.